Good morning. It's April 30th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Well, Congress is back in session this week, and the clock's running on moving forward with the Trump Republican agenda. And we've watched the debate between the House and Senate about whether to do one large bill under reconciliation or two bills. Under the two-bill approach, they would do border security and energy policy. This would move the tax bill a little later in the year. And both positions have some positives and some negatives. With Congress continuing to debate how to renew the key components of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, it should be clear to everyone that the stakes are pretty high for just about all of us. The issue is whether we choose a path that incentivizes economic growth and mobility or embraces one that punishes success. Democrats have wasted precious little time in racing to call for ever higher tax rates for Americans, especially high-income earners. Most concerningly, there have apparently been rumors of support for raising taxes on higher-income Americans from within GOP ranks. Before I go any further, I want to be honest about my own feelings. In 2017, my former boss, Senator Orrin G. Hatch, was the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. I discussed with him the merits and problems of lowering the top rate from 39 to 36%. It gave the Democrats their major talking point in their opposition to the bill. The Democrats focused on the amount of dollars the cuts gave back rather than the total dollars taxpayers were paying. For that reason, I would give some consideration, as some Republicans have this time around, to raising the top rate back to somewhere around 39%. But I should point out that this only affects taxable income for a married couple with incomes over $761,000. That's not a lot of people. There would be some revenue generated by doing this, and it would use it to increase the standard deduction a couple of $1,000s, and that would benefit all the middle class. Some estimates are about 81 million filers. But I'm also aware that there's this fundamentally flawed vision that the rich are getting away without paying much of anything in taxes, while the burden is left for the working class. This couldn't be further from the truth. Recent data has shown that top 1% earners bring in 22.4% of income throughout the country, but pay 40% of all federal income taxes. If you zoom out a bit, you'll find the top 5% earners pay over 60% of federal income tax in this country. This gets even more lopsided when you look at the bottom 50% of taxpayers who pay just 2.3% of federal income tax. In fact, the majority of the bottom 50% not only paid zero in taxes, but got money back from federal government due to various tax credits. Now, Democrats have used the term fair share over and over. It's one of their favorite terms. They keep saying they want the wealthy to pay their fair share. They never put a number on this term, but they realize that by just using the term, it resonates with the public. Everyone wants someone else to pay more than they do, so claiming the wealthy should pay more means they should have to pay less. What they never tell you is that the 2017 tax bill was basically a 10% across-the-board tax cut. Even the Washington Post and the New York Times finally had to admit that the middle class got a tax cut. In 2019, in response to Biden's claims that only the wealthy got a tax cut, the Washington Post wrote, quote, "Moreover, when both the Joint Tax Committee and the Tax Policy Center looked at the impact of the tax bill, they concluded that in 2018, most people would see an overall reduction in taxes. The Tax Policy Center found that 80.4% of all taxpayers would have a tax cut, compared with about 5% increasing a tax increase. In the middle quintile, 91% would get a tax cut, averaging about $1,090, with 7.3% facing a tax increase of about $910, end quote. I can go even further. The Cato Institute argued that the Joint Tax Committee and the Tax Policy Center present a misleading picture because they include payroll taxes, such as Social Security and Medicare, and the Trump tax legislation left payroll tax untouched. And you have to remember, when you include those, you better start subtracting the benefits you get when you retire. So when you exclude payroll taxes, it appears as though the largest share of the tax changes go to the middle income quintile. That's according to Cato Institute. If Democrats would have their way on taxes, such as raising the top marginal income tax rate or imposing a new wealth tax on high net worth individuals, we would have an even worse system that further discourages upward mobility. The party still has not given up hopes in certain circles of a one-off wealth tax on high net worth Americans. Now, this is problematic for the simple truth that steeply higher tax disincentivizes people from making more money. You can see this on full display in certain European countries, such as the United Kingdom, where high taxation, as well as overregulation, have resulted in decades of minimal to zero growth. But now Republicans in Congress have to get moving and come to some agreement on how to proceed. Speaker Johnson has tried to set a date of May 22nd, which is when the next recess occurs. They will get no help from Democrats, who can be expected to try and throw a wrench in the process at every point. In order to get to the numbers that they want, they will have to be cuts in spending, and that will cause problems even within the Republican caucus, because no member wants to support spending cuts that might impact their district. But the media needs to be honest when they report on this kind of effort and make it clear that higher incomes in this country are going to still pay the bulk of the taxes. We do have a progressive tax code. And when they say how many dollars someone might save in a tax bill, they should also report how many dollars they're paying. Then the public gets a true picture of how tax policy actually works. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.